Oh, bonjour. How are
Bonjour,
you?
dzień dobry. Good, thank you.
Dzień dobry, Jean. And we have Eva as well. So how was your trip from Leżajsk?
Yes, not too bad actually, very fast, so that's nice.
Fantastic, guys. I hope that you remember the topic of our episode today.
I think it really changed, right?
Yeah.
Something about change.
Change management.
Okay, so the last moment to just grab some water, grab some 00, and let's go to the coach.
Welcome to Heineken Krakow Unfiltered Talks, where business meets passion. In today's episode, we explore how change happens in projects, in organizations, and in the everyday moments of life.
Happy to see you. And maybe I'll just make the short introduction on you. Wish you will make the short introduction. Jean, if you just, I can start with you.
Yeah. So I'm currently the head of Transport Management Hub here in Krakow. I'm working within Heineken for 14 years now, and I joined TM Hub a few months ago only, so freshly in Krakow.
Eva.
So I'm senior change specialist and working in projects supporting from change management perspective, and I work in Heineken for 5 years now.
Yes, good to have you guys here as you are quite exposed to certain changes. Of course, I'm not saying about that because she's expert in terms of change. But maybe I will start with you, Jean. You moved from France to Krakow. You moved from France to Poland. That was a quite big change, I must say. And you moved here, or soon you will move with your family as well. So tell us, how did you experience that basically? How did you manage with that element of the change? It was quite big.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes, indeed, it was a quite big change, and it's still a quite big change, both professionally and personally. But I think there are two types of changes in my mind. There are the ones that we are choosing, the one that we are leading, and the one that are decided by someone else or by an organization. And in my case, coming to Poland was my choice. So it was really kind of the change that I want. And for sure, for my family, and especially for my kid, for my daughter, she had to follow my decision. And I think that all of us in our professional lives, we have those two types of changes that we need to deal with.
Correct. We will back to that as well. But before we will back to that, so maybe I will ask Eva, you didn't move from any country to Poland, so that big change didn't touch you. But did you have any big change in your life which somehow impacted you, or you took some learnings as well from that?
Yes, yeah, I think many of those, but the one I think is important to mention for me at least is that I joined Heineken actually when COVID started. So for me, it was a huge shift in how I perform my work, how many different things I do to kind of complete tasks, or how I cooperate with people, because everything turned to be virtual. So that was a big shift for me. And also in my previous company, I knew people. I kind of really had colleagues, but even friends there. And when I joined, I felt a bit isolated. So it was quite difficult for me, to be honest, at the very beginning. And the only thing that saved me is having a great boss that really took some time to kind of talk about Heineken and introduce some of the topics for me. So yeah, that helped.
So as you as a change expert, I do believe that you applied certain tips or approaches as well to that.
Yeah, look, I of course I tried, because all of us, we go through the same process, the same stages of change, obviously. And if we want to talk about this, because I think it's also important, we can say that there are several of those. And the first phases of those stages involve obviously not very positive emotions, as you may know from your experience as well. So like even fear, even denial, saying things, no, I don't want to be a part of any of that. If we talk about certain change, if it's personal or if it's at work. Even resisting a bit, saying, why do I need to do something? The way we do stuff now work actually for us. And then if we're lucky, or if the process is, let's say, ideal, because there might be different deviations from that, we may be lucky to move to exploration. So we started to get, let's say, interested. Okay, maybe this is something for me. Maybe this is more efficient for me to try something. And again, if we get the right support of knowledge and people around us, we move to commitment. Would you agree with that, Łucja?
Well, basically, Yes, what I've heard, what I learned is that each and every of us is scared or afraid of the change. Despite I was thinking that I'm the perfect example, that I like changes, I want to move from one to another, which is not true. The point is basically that maybe I'm just go through certain phases faster, and that helps me as well. But yes, you are right. You need to just understand what is happening with you in the change. We will tackle the change from the two different angles. Yeah, that's why we have two guests in the expert from the change, but as well as someone who's receiving the change, and we are leading the big team as well, transport management here in AGSS. So that's why we talk from someone who is not an expert in the change, but experienced the change, is exposed to change, how the rest, like the rest of the people in our organization, someone who can help with certain methodologies. You mentioned at the beginning that there is a difference if someone decides on your behalf that you need to be exposed to change, or you decide that you will change something. And I think this is the good point. Now we are exposed to certain programs, projects, your people as well to that. How you think you can help them with the fear of the change? Because I understand the fear of the change is natural.
I think that we need to trust our people that they can handle change. They can navigate through the change as long as they are clear about the sense and about the end state vision. So if we are bringing explanation and the sense about that, they can navigate through the change. And I think that we can trust our people as long as we are capable to explain them what they're going to do. And for sure, we need to be clear that for some of our people, and we should never underestimate that it could have some impact in their process, in the organization, in the tool, in their daily job. But by bringing clarity and transparency about that, I think we can reduce the space of the fear that you mentioned. Because fear is not a good advisor, so it can prevent you to act and to move. So I think by bringing clarity and vision to our people, then we are creating much more sense, and this sense is helpful for sure to navigate through the change.
Okay, and here I will link a bit before we go to you, Eva, because you can as well say how then from the project management perspective, so change management, which is a part of the project management, you can help to navigate through that. But before we will go to that, Jean, the France, OPCO, so our operating company, was part of the big program, which is Sequoia. And that was a huge impact as well on our understanding your team in France, because you were leading teams in France. How did you help them? How did you manage with that in France?
I think that on that part, to be very honest, I learned from my own mistake as well.
Okay,
yeah,
that's nice.
Really, because I think that Sequoia, and especially org design, it was a massive change, and especially for planning team, for example, and from logistic team. Everything mainly was about to change. So as I said, process, organization, tool, daily jobs were completely different. Some tasks even were transferred from the OPCO to Krakow or to the hub in Amsterdam. So that was a quite big change. So we focused mainly on those type of people, on those teams, to explain the change and the impact of change. And in the same time, we forgot about indirect change and people who are not directly impacted by the change. And we invest not a lot of time, for example, with customer service. So at the end, the planning department and the distribution part, the transportation team, they were pretty aware, even if it was sometimes painful, they were aware about what was supposed to happen, and they were prepared. But for customer service, for example, I think we missed this point. And they experienced the change in a much more negative way because they were really undergoing the change and they were not dealing. They feel that they didn't have any grip on this change. And I think this is a kind of big learning for me to never underestimate, even for people who are not directly connected to the change, that we need to care about those people and to explain as well for those people the type of change.
You nicely summarize it basically. Yeah? I mean that, and Eva, you can just as well to add, because from the project management element of when a change management is a big part of it, you have as well an experience with the big programs like SharpX 2.0, which is about the finance model changes now in terms of the digital and technology teams. So how to help in this kind of a situation from the change management in the project management?
Yes, so but actually what you described is a classical, let's say, example where change management is needed, and we are the ones that's supposed to help you to remember about the indirect, let's say, impact as well. But I just wanted to firstly go back to this communication part, because I really think it's super important, and I'm glad you kind of mentioned that. that you were the ones telling the story, telling, okay, why are we changing? Why now? How is this impacting me? Because it might be a curiosity for you guys that there are even studies that say that people don't want to hear about changes from change experts, from their colleagues. No, they want to hear from leaders, and firstly, even from the head of the organization, and then from their supervisors. So that's super important. And this is what we follow indeed in change management. But the second thing you mentioned around the impact, indeed, if we perform this exercise with, let's say, receiving organization, let's call it like this, at the right moment, and if we have the right details already, we're able to really understand who is impacted how, and even talk about the indirect, let's say, impact on different teams as well, and then are able to help you to create the right plans so that you don't feel that you missed out any of those. Yeah.
Yeah, you nicely said that that leaders, basically, not the experts in the change, and I fully agree with that. And by the way, the change management is my favorite part in terms of the transformation, and still I think it's not properly tackled from the organization perspective in some aspect. I'm not saying about Heineken, I'm just saying generally that now more and more we talk about it, what the people can experience in the change, but anyway, as well in this learning process. So you said very nicely about the leaders, and here I'd like to very stress that change management and change leadership are two different things. From your perspective, Jean, because change leadership is about me as a leader who leads the organization, who help the people in the organization to go through the change. What is important from your perspective? What kind of the support you as a leader would need from the change expert, in example, to help yourself as well, because you are as well impacted by change, to help yourself to being able to help better your people on the floor with the change?
From my perspective, the main challenge when you are leading such a change is to make sure that you are able to pass through every steps of the change, every stages of the change, and to respect that for everybody they need to pass through these stages. But for sure, individually, it can take more time to pass through the shock to the accepting part of the change. And as a leader, you need to make sure that you respect that, but at the same time, you need to deliver as well. So that's really, for me, the role of the leader, to make sure that you are connected to your people, to make sure that they are comfortable, they understand the why, they pass through every of the stages of the change. But at the same time, you need to deliver as well. So for me, it's really how we are able to combine the fact that we need to deliver and to stick to some deadline and to deliver on due date, but respect to people that they need some time to pass through every of those stages. So this type of support, for sure, this is the type of thing I'm looking for when I'm driving a change.
Okay.
We have a couple of the trainings regarding that. I mean, a lot of the companies go through certain changes. Heineken is not isolated in that. We have like way of many projects like Digital Backbone, Sequoia, D&T transformation, many others, basically. Do you think that we do enough support, help people with a change with different angles? I mean, that from the project management perspective, but as well from this psychological perspective. So like with the training, so about the soft skills, explaining what you as a person go through, can experience, go to the change, how you see it. It's enough, or we should do something different, something more?
Yeah. So, I mean, from my perspective, we provide some trainings. We even some time ago created some learning journey with the L&D. But to be honest, I would be curious to know your opinion, because you're kind of the one that probably receives, or your teams that watch some videos or participate in some trainings. So maybe your opinion is mostly important here, to be honest.
No, I think there are plenty of things and plenty of support that we can get from Heineken. For sure, we can do more, but I really think that it's a kind too of individual responsibility as well to go through the changes.
Correct.
And as much as your experience changes, as more you get used to that, and then you are able to fit with. And that's, for me, it's a kind of individual responsibility as well to drive his own path through the change, to navigate through the change. And for sure, we get support from the organization, from the learning that we get from our leaders, by be inspired by the role model from the organization. But I really think that every one of us, we have to drive our own journey through the changes. And it could take more time for me for certain stages, and I will be much more fast on the other one. And then that's the reason I think by getting experience
Yeah.
in different type of changes, it will help me. So I mean that for me, the main skills that we need to develop and to reinforce is the curiosity of our people, the willingness
Yes.
to experience such a change. And I mean, it will help us.
No, I'm just wondering because this is very important what you said and interesting. So maybe it's a good idea to involve the teams so that they have an occasion to take part in some projects so that they get this experience because later on they will be, let's say, easy for them to adapt. This is what you mean, I believe, right?
Yeah,
So
for
maybe
sure.
it's a good
Change
idea
exposure,
to,
yeah. So that's to be exposed. I mean, that this is the way how you can learn. I'm saying as well from my experience. I
like
mean,
on the
that-
job, right?
Right, on the job. So the curiosity, of course, the willingness, because even if I'm curious, I'm afraid, but I won't try. Yeah, so that's probably what we say. Eva, from your perspective, what for you is the most important the most important element of the change management? Meaning that of course we can have different templates, PPT, measurements, but this is still like a tool. But from like this more higher level perspective, stakeholder perspective, what is the most important?
Yeah, so there are really different tools we can cherry pick, to be honest, for different projects. That's for sure. If there are, depending on the complexity, if the project is complex, then definitely we need to apply more tools, more methodology. But the core or the standards, definitely, and step number one actually as well, is proper communication, so that we really know how to tell the story. But also we need to know how to support our sponsor so that he is able to tell the story. And
And sponsor, you mean whom exactly?
yeah, like either the receiving organization, so someone
in this
that
case,
is
Jean, in
owner.
example, yeah? So
Exactly, like Jean, even Jean. So Jean, we would need to support you with the right story, and it's not charts, and it's not jargon, and it's not acronyms and things like that. People hate this kind of language and they don't want to engage in it if there's too much of it. So if we prepare a good, let's say, story, and I don't mean in it in a way that we want to deceive people, no, but it needs to be served in the right way, then we need to start with that to explain to everybody, because this is where it comes with awareness. So I would say communication comes first, that's for sure. But also something that you mentioned before, so allowing people to ask questions. They need to ventilate, they need to ask a lot of questions, they need to ask difficult questions so that we can move on further. The next core, I would say, so understanding who is impacted by the change, so who are the stakeholders. So again, this is something what you mentioned, so that we don't forget about anyone. And this is where we can help too. To map them, as we call it, and to analyze what we can offer to you, what kind of channels we should be using, what to communicate when to whom.
One book inspired me to drive this type of change is the famous John Cotter's book, My Iceberg is Melting. Yeah? And I think that create the sense of urgency, because everybody can be convinced that this change is needed. But why should I endorse it right now? Why should I take this decision right now? Why I need to drive this change? Maybe I can do something else right now. Is it really my first priority? And I think that we need some time to create this sense of urgency that, no, we need to do it right now. We need to drive this change right now. It was a bit like this for Sequoia. Huh? So it was a so big change. Sometimes people can be afraid, say, wow, we need to change almost everything. But then you find plenty of reasons to postpone it, to do it later, or to try to mitigate a bit the impact. But at the moment, you need to act and to deliver fast, because otherwise, the impact or what you are looking for, you won't be able to deliver it. So, I mean that people, they need to understand the sense, the end state vision, but you need to find a trigger at the moment to create this sense of urgency. Guys, we need to do it. We need to act now. Otherwise, it will be too late.
I like these examples. I mean, that which I think one of our colleagues used during the change management presentations or trainings. And it's very well known, and I think that they take it always during the different studies, case studies, whatever. It's about Nokia and Kodak in terms of that. Why now? Yeah, so they miss opportunity in terms of the all digitalization. They miss opportunity in terms of the smartphones as well. So now, so that's the good cases as well to supporting why the change is important now. I think that you can link as well that in terms of the digital backbone, you had like the quite intensive experience with your opcos with Serbia as well. But so anyway, how to keep the motivation, people? Because there was some failures there. Let's don't be afraid to use that words. Yeah. So how to still keep people motivated? I mean, that's you say. I mean, guys, but something failed. That's in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It was quite challenging. But what I really like looking at this experience is, as an organization, we are capable to learn from our mistake or from our challenge. And the approach for the next OpCo is quite different. So I mean that we understood that we were not dealing the change in the
Yes.
good approach. It was really not conducted with the people in charge of the operation. So it was a kind of decoupled decision from the business. And then I think everybody involved in the project understand that we need to change the approach. And the fact that today we are much more connected to the OpCo, and the fact that we are trying to understand really the gap between the as-is situation and the to-be is helping people as well to say, okay, I can participate, I can explain what is the situation, okay, and I can fit with the new standard, and I can see what is the gap. And then people are feeling that they have grip on that. And it's completely different, because for Serbia, it was different. It was really pushy. And then it's still pushy in terms of deadline, but people can participate and have grip on things.
So engagement, you say the engagement, and then the things which I really like about methodologies in terms of the change management. So lessons learned, meaning that, okay, so, but then indeed to put them in practice. So that the one thing is, of course, understand what is the gap between ideal situation and as a situation which is far from the ideal, and then how we can cover that gap based on the lessons learned. Eva, I'm looking at you. What was your failure in terms of that maybe project, maybe you can as well use your private elements, but which gave you kind of the lessons learned when then you took and then you change something?
Yeah, so there were many of those, but maybe just quickly two of those. So one was when I realized I cannot be really just a facilitator. I need to really, as change management expert, understand the project to its core, so that I am able to lead the right conversation at the right moment, let's say. I cannot just ask question and wait for my stakeholder to answer it for me. And now I need to know in which direction we need to go. So that was first one. And that was connected obviously to a failure when I saw maybe I didn't connect it to all the dots I needed to. Maybe my stakeholder doesn't know where I'm going with a certain exercise. So definitely it came with experience. And the second one is also, I think, a couple of years back when we realized in the project, that was SharpX 1.0, when we introduced SAP for HANA. And then we realized, we're communicating in a way no one understands. Again about this communication, but that was a big failure, because we really did it in a way that people kind of didn't want to hear about, so I stopped engaging, right? So we really saw very quickly that people started to, let's say, ask different questions or difficult ones, and it evoked maybe not a chaos, that's a big word, but still something negative. So huge two, let's say, learnings for me, definitely. Yeah.
Jean, it was that case in France, or was something different for you?
No, as I described a bit. So when you underestimate the change for a part of your organization, actually, this is for me the main risk. So you need really to fit in the shoes of your people and to understand that, okay, for this part of the organization, it's pretty clear. But for this one, it's not yet pretty clear. That means that you need to deep dive. You need to understand what does that mean for them. And we should not overestimate the impact of the change for people, but we need to be super clear on that. And as soon as it's clear as a leader, then you are able to manage that and to navigate through the change.
Yeah, I do agree. When I was listening, and my experience as well, because I'm transformation now, so moving, leading from the perspective of the project, but I was as well as a receiving team. So for me, it was always the most important that I need someone who will understand why I see the failures or risk mainly. Yeah. So, and then help me. So how to move with that way of thinking to make it successful. Yeah. Meaning that help me, dear change specialist, change manager, change lead, to go through the journey and then eventually show the success. How we can measure that change happened, is successful? It's about everything. It's about changing life, changing houses, changing as well systems even. Yeah, how we can measure it?
Maybe I can provide one example. So Actually, change management is all about, let's say, helping with the adoption. So adoption means whether we use something, whether we apply to the new ways of working or not. The simplest and probably most obvious example is obviously technology. So we can quickly measure that to see if people are using a new tool, system implemented or not. And we have many cases of that, maybe not even, I'm not speaking about Heineken, but in general, that we see, okay, fine, we introduced it, we finished the project, but people are not using the system. So this is a difficult part. And this is where we need still this change management, even if the project ends. We are, I think, in Heineken also learning that what else we can do to support this adoption. And even today we had this heated discussion during one of our workshop of change management. Okay, so what can we do more? So I guess, yeah, this is a hot topic for sure, but it's all around indeed adoption. Yeah.
Yes, and we will have to do much more. Jean, how to measure the change is effective?
Actually, I have a very real example from my previous experience. So in logistics, we have implemented this pedestrian detection system, which is a device. We prevent you to hit a pedestrian when you are driving a forklift truck. But for the forklift truck driver, it's a big change because it influences the speed of your forklift. It's ringing when there is an obstacle. So it can be really a kind of, it can bother you all along the day because it's ringing. And at the beginning of the project, there were a lot of resistance again with this project because it was influencing really the daily job of our people. And we measured that it was a big change, so we spent a lot of time on that. And finally, when I was driving the operation, after a few months, I did not listen anything about this PDS system. So, and after a few months, I go I've been in a brewery and I ask to my people, how is it working? And my people say, actually, there is a forklift truck which is in maintenance, and we replace it through a system which has not the PDS system. And the forklift truck driver, they were complaining about the fact that they were not feeling comfortable to drive without the PDS.
Okay.
And at this very same moment, I say, okay, the change has been accepted because they don't want to work with the former way of working. They want the new way of working. And for me, it was a big success to measure this kind of feedback from the people.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, but good that we have. I mean, that the feedback is important as well. But good that we have as well the mechanism to measure it. Eva, you wanted to add anything to that?
Just wanted to add that there are different ways we can add to what you said. And I remember your project because, I mean, I work with previously the teams of transportation, and I remember that we measured and asked very specific questions, and we worked with the team leaders to find out what do we need to ask them to see if they're resisting, to see if they really understand, why are they switching. And they were external providers, so it was harder for them, let's say, maybe we skipped or we didn't pay enough attention to them so that we really make sure that they really get it and will follow the change. So we sent them actually surveys, we followed up with additional conversations. So this is also the way how we can measure and check if they follow through with what we thought of. Yeah.
Good. That, of course, this is a very famous statement saying that the change is only the one constant thing which we can experience in our life. At Heineken, for sure, we are constantly in the transformation, in the change. We will expect more. You mentioned during our conversation a couple of the elements in terms of the skills or behaviors which are important for people to people to get to being prepared. If you could just now summarize 3, 4, which are the most important to get to being able to go through the change.
I would say curiosity, appetite to learn, willingness to be aware and be open to new way of working. So for me, it's much more curiosity.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think also a bit of a knowledge about, or maybe I can call it emotional intelligence. So to me, it's around or about the fact that I know what
how
kind
I
of
behave in
how
the
I
change,
behave
what are the stages
exactly.
as well.
I can calm myself down, or I can, let's say, wait for the right, let's say, or for finishing this feeling that it will become positive more in time. But also being again aware that I can control it what is happening to me from the external factors. I can control the way I react to change, and I can take small steps just to kind of push through. So maybe those two as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that element in terms of the curiosity and then to control the change. So as well understand what are my circles or influence or not, or which I can't
Yeah.
influence and I can't do anything by myself, but I can raise. And that element about the asking questions as well is really important. Thank you so much. It was really interesting to talk with the expert from the change and the expert from supply chain to listening about this interesting story. So thank you very much for that nice conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Futzia.
Make sure you tune in to other episodes of Heineken Unfiltered Talks and get to know our fascinating employees,